The 5070 is probably the easiest 50 series GPU that you can pick up right now. If you're lucky, just like me, you can pick one up for MSRP. But why are people not buying these? Jensen said back in January that this would equal an RTX 4090, thanks to AI. Well, is that true? Well, luckily, I have not only the 5070, but I've had my RTX 4090, and let's see, is that statement true? This is going to be a completely different review than I normally do. Most of the time I'm doing full esports, trying to see, okay, what's gonna happen when I crank all the settings down and just try and get the highest FPS possible. That's not what we're doing today. Today, what we will be doing is we're going to be comparing single player games only and looking at frame generation and seeing kind of how multi-frame gen does work on the 5070. Currently, over 100 games support multi-frame gen, and here's a list of all of the games that are in my library. A lot of them are on Game Pass, so I've actually never played them, but that do support multi-frame gen. Now, 2 of these are actually esports titles, Marvel Rivals and The Finals. Every other single player game, I'm perfectly fine with using multi-frame gen, and I actually kind of do support it, or just any kind of frame generation, because you do want that higher FPS, and it can kind of help your experience a little bit. But in something like a competitive shooter, you don't want to be dealing with any of that ghosting, those anomalies, that added input lag that does come from frame generation. Those games are pretty much GPU bound as well, so what I would kind of just recommend instead is that you just turn on DLSS or lower your render res, turn down the settings. They're competitive. You don't need to be running ultra settings. Now, this review could just be super simple. Turn on frame gen, hit the benchmark button, give you benchmarks. But that's not what I care about, and that's not what my channel is built on. I want to actually maximize your performance and your actual experience in the game. Frame gen is very, very convoluted, especially now. It used to just be frame gen on or off. Now it's, you got 2x, which is what the 40 series has. You have 3x, you have 4x. Probably on the 60 series, you'll get 5x, 6x. Given enough time, we'll have like 100x. Plus you're adding in DLSS with a new transformer model. There's all this different AI and kind of guesswork that could happen. Also, no matter how good frame generation is, there's always going to be a little bit of input lag, which you do not want. You're having to interpolate fake frames. It's taking one frame and it's taking the frame right after it, and it's trying to guess whatever's in front of it. 2x just adds one frame, 3x adds 2, 4x, 3. You get the point. Now let's take a look at the different multi-frame gen settings, as well as how to properly set up this frame gen, as well as DLSS in NVIDIA Profile Inspector, and how we will be benchmarking it in our benchmarks. All right, so here we are in Cyberpunk 2077, getting about 53 FPS, pulling, 285 watts. Yeah, this is without frame gen right now. This is 4K balanced, DLSS. Let me turn down that exposure. And as you can see, everything looks pretty clear. Sorry for my voice. Yeah, like everything looks pretty clear. Like I'm not having any like ghosting on like things. Like, yeah, like everything looks pretty clear. But now let's turn on frame generation. So let's go into our settings here and let's do frame generation on. We're gonna start at 2x. This is what like 40 series has. It already applies, so we're good. But if we resume, we can see our FPS goes up to about 90. So it's actually pretty good. Yeah, like everything looks fine. Like this area right here looks fine to me. I'm more worried kind of about like text and stuff. That's actually really where you can kind of notice the ghosting and stuff. And like you're always gonna be looking at the text because you're like waypoints, text like this telling you what to do. That's pretty stationary, but the other stuff like right here, that isn't. But okay, like 2x is fine. It's been pretty fine the entire time. 3x, let's see. Do we notice any ghosting? Maybe a little bit, but like nothing that like you'll notice if you weren't like literally sitting here trying to notice it. Same thing right here. Nothing actually really on that or on this. This is where I've been looking. Nothing on like hair or anything. Like this passes the test. Like this is something I would game on. That's kind of my whole like spiel. FPS is what now? 120, 129, 130. So you got about 40 more FPS off that. We've started at 50 something and now we're at 130. Let's go to 4x. And what's going to happen? Yeah, I gotta hit escape. So we're now at 160 FPS at 4K on a $500 card. Pretty impressive. But let's see. Okay, so let's go right here to this. Yeah, like this is when I'm starting to notice a lot of ghosting. I hope this is showing up on camera well for you guys. But like, this is a lot of ghosting, especially on a 240 hertz display. I'm noticing it. Same thing with right here is not as bad, but I can still notice a little bit of like, whoa, what's going on? And same thing with this. But what I do notice especially is just moving the mouse. It feels like there's something like in between me and the mouse. Not the mouse pad, but like, it feels like there's something between me moving the mouse and the display. It doesn't feel like 160 FPS. It feels smooth, but it feels like there's like, it just doesn't feel right. That's why for this review, we will just exclusively be doing 3X, because I think 3X is the best, and it's what most people should be using. They're not gonna notice insane input delay. But now let's show you like how I'm gonna set up my benchmarks and how to make sure that you can get 3X for all the 50 series games that support multi-frame gen. Okay, so here we are on the actual desktop here. So I have this little NVIDIA settings file. This is available for my supporters and everyone who buys my service. That's just a little thing I kind of give them. But you want to install the latest version of NVIDIA Profile Inspector. I will leave a link down below. This is like an advanced NVIDIA app. These settings are kind of available through the NVIDIA app, but the NVIDIA app lowers your FPS. It's not something you want to use. So open up NVIDIA Profile Inspector. And here you're going to be in the global driver profile. You're going to want to scroll down a little bit to, I believe it is number 5, common. 2 settings we're going to change: DLSS enable DLL override and DLSS force preset letter. Enable DLL override, you want to make sure this is set to on. DLSS overwritten by latest available. Make sure you're always using the latest DLSS model. It's just always going to be better. And then DLSS force preset letter. So basically, NVIDIA has all these different DLSS presets, kind of different algorithms and all that stuff. And what this is doing is just saying which one is the best. Now, a lot of people have done a lot of testing. There's a couple that are unused. Sorry, my phone keeps going blurry, but you can always use latest if you wanted to, but preset K is going to be the best. It has the best quality as well as also potentially having better performance. So this is what you're going to want to use. So just hit that and hit apply. Now, every time you do reinstall your driver, you are going to have to reset these and make sure that they are set. But as well as there's a couple other settings. There's one other setting you actually want to change. DLSS frame gen multi-gen frame count. Now you could set this for, this is only going to work on 50 series, but you can always set this to max, so always do 2X, 3X, 4X, whichever one you prefer. And that way, every game, no matter what, will always do it. Even if, like, for example, in Cyberpunk, when you're going from 2, 3, 4, it'll always be on that one that you set in this driver. This will override game settings. But, for example, the way I use it is I will always just set it in game just so I can kind of have a little more control over it. But there's a game like Stalker 2. If I type in S, we have Stalker 2 right there. I'm gonna click on it. And then look, I already did this because I was already testing it, but you're going to want to set it to whatever you want to test it. I did all my testing in 3X. I think 3X is the best. So yes, this is the best in my opinion. I'm gonna hit apply. I think it looks the best and you kind of don't get that added input lag of 4X. Always just meet in the middle. So yes. 3 times frame gen really is the sweet spot for the 50 series. You get more FPS than 2X, which is obviously expected, but you don't get that insanely added input latency penalty that you get on 4X. For me, the way that I can kind of quantify input delay is if I can feel it. Like I noticeably felt a delay when I was moving my mouse, something that I am very prone to latency. I have a 480 hertz monitor behind me. I have the fastest mouse. I have a glass mouse pad. I have the fastest keyboard. Everything is supposed to be as fast as possible, so I can feel the delay even when I should be noticing the least amount. And another big deal is that you don't have to deal with as many artifacts that you kind of do notice on 4X. 3X doesn't really have them. It is that sweet spot. It is better than 2X, and it actually is a welcome upgrade, but it's not 4X, which is kind of like a marketing gimmick. Now for the real question, because who cares? How well does it perform? Both GPUs are fully overclocked. My RTX 4090 has an XOC BIOS on it, which does 3 GHz at 1.1 volt, plus 1000 on the memory. Now, this Shadow 2X from MSI originally has a 250 watt power limit. Simply not enough. I was actually hitting the power limit in games. So what I did was I flashed a Palette 300 watt BIOS on it, and so I pretty much just removed the power limit. Took super easy. This allowed me to get a little bit more headroom, and I'm doing about 3200 megahertz in games on this, and then I maxed out the VRAM. Just a little FYI, these VRAM chips are rated for 32 gigabits per second. They are clocked at 30 gigabits per second. That means that every card can just do plus 2000 and you're good to go. All these benchmarks are done at 4K, but with DLSS balanced with the special K preset that I showed earlier, just because that does look the best and performs the best. In Cyberpunk 2077, I tested every frame gen setting available for the 4090 and the 5070. And NVIDIA's claims of the 5070 equal the 4090 with frame gen is 100% true. When enabling frame gen, you can see that the 5070 does match the 4090 running all real frames. And when the 4090 has frame generation enabled, and the 5070 has 4 times, they're actually about equal, with the 5070 actually getting slightly higher FPS, but like the input lag is not as good, so there is that drawback there. Now for Stalker 2. This shows that 3 times frame gen actually performs the same as non-frame gen with the 4090, with the 4090 having frame generation enabled 2x, being 50% faster. I will say that the 5070, even with frame gen disabled, does get good FPS in this scene, but this is pretty early in the actual game where I benchmark, so possibly later in the game, it's gonna get a little bit more demanding, the FPS isn't gonna be as well, that's when you're gonna want that frame generation. Now, I originally benchmarked 3 games: Cyberpunk 2077, Stalker 2, and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. But I was not able to benchmark Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And let me show you why. Okay, so here I am in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, a game that I was going to benchmark, but I need to explain why I can't. And this is honestly the biggest issue with the 50 series, and NVIDIA saying that the 5070 is equal to the 4090 here, which this makes it obviously not. So when I go into options here, so I have a 4K monitor. 4K, I'm gonna apply this just so I make sure it works. We are currently using 9.67 of my VRAM, 9.66. So when I scroll down, these are settings that I would play. So I would play at continue, that's fine. I would play, let's say high. And you can already see the issue actually. Estimated VRAM requirements exceed available video memory. We're at 10.6. So let's scroll down. So I was planning on testing this at full RT because this is challenging for the 4090. So I was like, okay, I do that. And then I was like, you know what, DLSS, we're going to do DLSS balanced. So 1080p makes kind of sense. And I believe ray reconstruction as well. Actually, we're not going to. Frame generation, we're going to do 3 times. And then Ultra. Look at how much VRAM we're using already. 11.26 gigabytes, like 37 FPS in the menu. This is not something that can be run. Versus on the 4090, I was able to easily get FPS in like the hundreds with frame generation enabled with these settings. And then a little bit lower when I maxed it out, and the game looked amazing. 2x frame gen, by the way. So it's like, this is not enough VRAM. NVIDIA should have done 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I genuinely do not know why they didn't. Make it half of the 5090. The 5090 has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. Make this one 16, make it half. This is way cheaper as well, but you gotta think, VRAM is really not that expensive. I know it's GDR7, I know it's new, it's more expensive. Really isn't that expensive in the cost of the actual production of the graphics card. And I mean, look, NVIDIA delayed the 5060 Ti because of VRAM. It has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It has an 8 and a 16 gigabyte model. I'm not gonna recommend anyone buy the 8 gigabyte model of the 5060 Ti. I'm gonna recommend that everyone gets a 16 gigabyte one. And to be honest, the 5060 Ti is not out yet. This is the day before it is actually releasing. But I would say that to anyone who actually wants a long-term graphics card, pick up a 5060 Ti with 16 gigabytes of VRAM over this. And it's clearly obvious that consumers are not accepting that you actually should be buying 12 gigabyte VRAM cards in 2025 for $550. Also, why do you think AMD gave us 16 gigabytes of VRAM on the 9070 XT? This is just a little bit more expensive, by the way. This is $50 more. Yeah, it's GDDR6, but like, I'd rather have slower VRAM than not enough. So in conclusion, can the 5070 equal the 4090? Yes. When you enable FrameGen, it is equal to it. And it actually is not a bad gaming experience. And if you're someone who's never experienced a 4090 before, this is going to be a great gaming experience. You're not going to complain. And obviously you're probably not going to have a 4K monitor as well. You'll probably be running like 1440p. This is a great gaming experience. And this is actually something that, like, if you can get one of these cards for MSRP, super small, throw it in an ITX rig, be pretty good. Now, in the future, I am going to be doing full comparison, doing all types of games against the 9070 XT and the 4090. So we will make sure you get subscribed for that. We'll see what happens there. But like, honestly, just because Indiana Jones wouldn't run at any settings with ray tracing enabled on this card, that really does make me kind of lean towards the 9070 XT if you can get one for MSRP. But we've got to see. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button down below. Join the Discord if you haven't already, become a member. If you're looking to get more performance out of your PC, go to chambertech.net. I offer 3 tiers of PC optimization, just a basic tune-up if you're having some issues, standard, Windows, all that stuff, NVIDIA drivers, AMD drivers. Then we have the Elite, where I will fully overclock and optimize every single aspect of your PC. Due to demand, I recently did have to increase the price to $200 US, but that's so I can give you guys the best quality service possible. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.